seems it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, the holly suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceeders mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Soul, where tonight we're doing the winning report. All the news, except we win, as we will always do, because we are eternal beings. I was just talking to someone recently about safety, and I was like, well, if your goal is to feel safe in the world, that's never going to happen. I mean, sorry, you can feel safe in the world for sure. If your goal is to actually be safe in the world, it's never possible. It's not possible. If by safety what you mean is predictable outcomes in which you are always at your perfect wellness, that's never going to happen. This is the material world we're talking about, and the only constant here is change. None of this is eternal, but that piece of you that is your consciousness and your soul, that is eternal. So if you want to feel safety, you have to know that part of yourself, because if all you know is this 3D reality, absolutely everything will crumble. There's nothing safe here. There's nothing lasting here. There's nothing permanent here. There's lots of beauty here, lots of wonder here, there's lots of joy here. You can be healthy and happy here. And you will also feel challenge and have non-happiness, non-joy. That's just a fact of physical existence here in the material world. So to know your soul is the absolute win of all. So without further ado, let's get into the wins tonight. And yeah, all of a sudden StreamYard changed everything. Everything is different for no reason at all. So roll with it. It's all working so far, so that's good. But roguesoul.org is my site. It's the place to find everything that I do. I'm actually still getting and accepting people to the healing class. So right here on the homepage, if you click Become a Healer, the class is still open. We've had one class session so far. I think we have about 16 people this time around, which is great. If we do get to 20, I'm definitely going to cap it. We don't want many more people than that. We'll do it again another time, perhaps, and then more of you can join in at that time. But if you were sort of like sitting and waiting and you're not sure, like, you actually still can join us. It's all recorded, so you can go check out the class still, and you haven't missed too much yet. There will be a point at which we will start doing our practicums, and then you will no longer be able to make up what you've missed. So at that point, you definitely can't join us, but that's there on the site. My books are here. You can schedule one-on-one sessions with me, life path, journey, tarot, past life tarot, sound healing, spirit guide sessions, channeling sessions, and more. That's all here also on the site. And worth checking out the shop as usual for any of the very beautiful, very powerful, incredibly amazing Oregon Lotus votives, Oregon pillars and towers, and more. That's all at roguesoul.org. If you're looking for what I write, as I was an author before anything else, so author, then a teacher, and now an author-teacher via show, via podcast, and more, and spiritual healer and teacher. But all of my writing is on my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. So I do write articles that are free for everyone, like the most recent, The Murder is Evil. This is, of course, in direct response to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but more, it is a response to leftism in general. And, I'm not a left-right person. And at the same time, I have been a leftist, and I have seen exactly the emotional decay that is inherent in that movement, especially the communist socialist aspects of that movement. And so I specifically address some of the claims of the immoral, unethical left. I had someone also respond to this article, and they were like, I've loved your content for so long, and then you wrote this article and you attacked me and my kind. And I'm like, if you identified yourself in any of that, that's all you. I didn't attack you. I attacked ideas, which is what I do. I'm not like the people who shot Charlie Kirk. I don't believe it's okay to attack people, but it is very right and good to dive into any idea and look at it from every possible perspective. And also there's not a word in this article that I haven't been saying for years. So I don't think you have been following me very long, actually, and that's okay. A lot of people find me somewhere, often on like a spiritual show, and so they hear my spiritual side and self. And we don't get into politics on shows like that, and so they will often project what they think a spiritual person should be. Which I'll tell you is, I'm not talking about this specific person anymore, but just a lot of people over the years. My most frequent identity, like box people put me in, is like vegan, lesbian. I don't know why. And pacifist. You throw that in there too. This like vegan, lesbian, pacifist, which is fine. I tried really hard to be all those things actually in my life. So I'm not surprised you see some of it left in me, but by no means is it who I am. So when they find out that I'm not that person that they created in their head, they're often really upset. And it's really adorable because you didn't actually in any way investigate who I am. You just went into which is what honestly most people are doing most time. They're like, this person belongs in this box and this person belongs in this box. And there's nothing actually inherently wrong with that. It is not as good, however, when that box crumbles to then get upset with the person. Like, you are the person who put them in the box, not themselves. So if you're surprised over who they become and it doesn't match where you put them in your mind, all you really do is update your mind. You don't have to be emotional at all, actually. But anyways, some people are upset because they felt like I was attacking them in this. Very much not. I mean, you've maybe read it already, and you can see what I was doing, which was engaging with ideas that I think are morally and ethically bankrupt. And so that's there on rogueways.substack.com. Also, channeled messages like the world is ending, which I think I already mentioned to you. I actually channeled this message 2 days before Charlie Kirk was shot, but it is so perfectly a response to that I couldn't have timed it better myself. These messages come through the spiritual ancestors. I'm just a channel for them to speak, and I get to share them here with you if you're a subscriber at rogueways.substack.com, and they're always perfect and they're always on the best possible timing. And I never plan it because I'm not in charge of what comes through when. So very interesting that. So the channel messages are here, the articles on health and wellness, the articles on ideas, the articles on history, philosophy, spirituality, books, and more. Those are all here at rogueways.substack.com. All of that for free. You can sign up for free. And then also, if you want to support the show, support what I do, if you love what you find here, you will also get those channeled messages there. So sign up and support me. Thank you so much for doing so. And we'll start here. The Federal Reserve lowers interest rates by 0.25%. Is it good? Is it good enough? I don't know. I guess time will tell. I want to say I like the idea of it because I like the idea that it might be potentially possible for me again someday to buy a home. But we'll see. So, I don't know. Possible win. Possible win. Also, the Senate has confirmed 48 of Trump's nominees at once after changing chamber rules to be able to do so. Sounds extreme. I was like, what is this even all about? And this is from the AP, who says the Senate has confirmed 48 of President Donald Trump's nominees at once, voting for the first time under new rules to begin clearing a backlog of executive branch positions that had been delayed by Democrats. Frustrated by the stalling tactics, Senate Republicans moved last week to make it easier to confirm large groups of lower-level, non-judicial nominations. Democrats had forced multiple votes on almost every one of Trump's picks, infuriating the president and tying up Senate floor. So, not actually that strange, given that Democratic stalling tactic and frustration. And I don't think this matters at all. So there you go. That happened. Much more important to people, Luigi Mangioni's terror-related charges were dropped. A lot of misinformation, disinformation going around about this, saying that all charges were dropped. No, they weren't. Only the terror-related charges. And a lot of people are upset about that. It does seem pretty obvious that there was a political motive to this. And when you, like the weakest human ever created, go up to somebody in the dark, behind their back, to the back of their head, and shoot them without warning, especially for political reasons, it definitely has a chilling effect. It also seemed very much designed to, in some way, cause healthcare to change its ways. Whether I would love that if that actually happened, and I also don't agree with these methods. But by definition, I would say that is at least fitting the definition of terrorism. If you're intending to force political or social change through fear and intimidation, that's terrorism. So, is it terrorism? Yeah. But can they prove that? No. That'd be very difficult to do. And that's why they dropped this charge. They can obviously prove that he murdered the guy. They can prove maybe all kinds of other things, but they cannot easily prove terrorism charge. So it wasn't organized. It wasn't highly funded, that we know of. And they can't prove for sure that it was absolutely intended to create this fear and force change in that way. So it makes sense to me. And obviously, he's still going to be tried and most likely found guilty for murder, as he should. So, still going. Don't believe the hype. Like now more than ever, always on this show, we've talked about this. Like, you have to look into things. You have to withhold your emotion, or at least give yourself time to process your emotion before you come back to something to accurately actually understand it. You got to use logic. You got to look at it from every angle. You got to do all of these things. And that's what I'm always doing. Hopefully sometimes I'm probably fall short because I'm a human being, but for the most part, that's my approach. And that's what I'm always teaching you and others to do. And I believe that's what you're doing, most of you, or you wouldn't like this show. But now more than ever, we have to do that, because this is just one example. This week has been the most over the top, emotionally reactive, disinformation, misinformation, bots crowding things up, like just nonsense spewing everywhere that I've seen, I think, ever. So really, really intense this week. And this was just one small piece of that, where people are like, they're letting him out. They're letting him out. They're not even going to charge him. And that wasn't even remotely true. So gotta not get involved in the hype. Not involved in the hype. Speaking of the much more emotional news from last week, Charlie Kirk, of course, was assassinated. Talk about political terrorism, right? We'll see where that goes. But that one's much easier to prove, I believe, if anything that we've seen is true. And of course, as you know, the potential that none of it is always there. So we always keep that as a possibility. But anyways, before I digress, Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's wife, is the new CEO and chair of the board for Turning Point USA. There was, again, just nothing but people like clamoring to get clicks, get clout, like, what Ben Shapiro is going to take it over. This is Israel. They're just going to try to take over Turning Point, trying to demolish it, dismantle it, and all this stuff. And who's going to take over, and all these different people, all these nefarious purposes. And then his wife ends up being the person, right? So, unless you think she killed him in order to become the CEO, this is sort of like a nothing burger as usual. And it would have remained that way the whole time if people would have just like calmed down and waited to see what happened. Because like right away, people were like, Ben Shapiro took over. And then there was no evidence that he did, so I didn't report that. They're like, Ben Shapiro is going to take over. Look at his donation. I looked into his donation. It had nothing to do with like gaining any sort of control Turning Point. I'm like, you guys, really, just like calm down. I mean, again, we can go back to like, we don't know that even this is true technically. I don't even know that Erica Kirk exists as a human being technically. I've not stood in front of her and touched her. I don't know that. But we're not solipsistic here. So we're just going to say, from what we can tell, right? Here's what's going on. And we could have just calmed down the whole time and waited until we knew, which would have made the most sense. So there's that really small piece of nothing that everyone freaked out about for a week. Really cool. Some really positive outcomes from a very otherwise tragic and horrendous occurrence. Mass attendance has been up at various colleges and churches in the wake of the assassination. I don't know if this is like Easter. This last Easter, we also had all of this news that all these churches were like overflowing. We got all this news that churches were like, oh, we have room for 1,500, and we had another 1,000 people outside, and there's like drone footage of this. Again, I'm not at these churches. I don't know, but these are the reports we're getting at least. And we seem to have seen a lot of people posting on social media, at least, like, I've never been a Christian, or I've always been an atheist, but I'm just like heartbroken and I want to go to church. And you never know. Here's the type of conspiracy that would be totally, nobody would ever care if it was true, but would be very realistic, is that a lot of those were faked, because the people who knew that this was the opportunity to like win souls for Christ, right, that they're going to put some of that out so they can like get more people in. And I wouldn't put it past people. I wouldn't even care. I'd say, like, good on you. That's a good move. Good, well played. It reminds me of when my, grandmother had a stroke, and she came out of the stroke, and she was okay, thank God, and she said, like, "Oh, man, I want a cigarette," and my mom was like, "Oh, that's weird because you haven't smoked for years." And she had just smoked a few hours ago, but my mom was like, "This is the opportunity I'm taking to get her to quit smoking, quit drinking, to improve her health." She's like, "Oh, well, I mean, can I have a beer?" She's like, "Oh, you haven't drank for years." Total lie, total BS, but, like, oh my god, it changed her life for the better so much. It gave her the opportunity she never could have had otherwise, right? So, I don't know. I don't know if there's a conspiracy like that going on, but it's a conspiracy that I'm not mad about if it is. Big church turnout, we're supposed to think otherwise. I have no reason to doubt it. I'm just saying. So we also have all of these reports of, around the world, of people just going around in prayer vigils, in, mourning together and putting up, altars and things. And so really beautiful, outpouring of love. Again, I just can't imagine, even if you didn't like Charlie Kirk, that you couldn't look at this and just feel really heartened that not everybody, is crazy. Not everybody's lost their humanity. Not everybody's like a violent person. And even in the response to this horror, whoever was responsible, people's response was to go out and be together and mourn. And this is what actually humans are best at, no matter what your culture or background or religion or anything else. This is what we do. We come together, we take care of each other, and we mourn, and we take care of ourselves together. And perhaps rightly, it's also being compared to the response to George Floyd. George Floyd, who overdosed on fentanyl and also died with COVID, and not from anything any police people did. George Floyd, who had been committing crimes and had been all along, actually, but was also doing so at that moment and was then very correctly detained by police. George Floyd died for those reasons, and people misconstrued it, misrepresented it, made him into a saint. But instead of coming together to mourn, they went burning down cities. And we know that was agent provocateurs. We know that that was political planned violence. We know that there was higher level backers to that violence. And we also know that people without morals or scruples went out and took part in it and took advantage of it, which they knew they would. Right. So, like, it's still also the people's response is very different. You could have had the same high level agitation and opportunity given to these people, but they're praying. And then these people burning things down. This isn't, as I've said many times this week and before, this isn't a left-right thing. This isn't a rich-poor thing. This isn't a Christian atheist thing. This isn't a Christian Muslim thing. This isn't an anything except people who are more emotionally and mentally well, and people who aren't. People who have some standards for themselves, and people who don't. People who are broken and angry and just ready to rip the world apart because they can't take responsibility for themselves, and the people who take responsibility for themselves. So there's sides to things for sure, and it runs along none of the lines that we're told to look at sociopolitically or economically. And so something to keep in mind. And so that was an interesting thing to see this week. Again, we had Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, donating $1 million to Turning Point USA. And this is his own quote about it. As a Jewish person, he said to, quote, bring people back to Christ and bring people back to church and back to biblical values as Charlie Kirk wanted. So even a Jewish person who is not, Jewish people do not recognize Jesus as their savior. Christ is not their Messiah. They don't go to church, they go to synagogue, like very different people of different religions, but he understood, again, on the surface, at least, he wants to show that he supports Charlie Kirk's mission as his friend. And so it's a beautiful gesture, right? And again, people are like, oh, this is him just trying to weasel in. Like, well, he has his own organization, dude. I don't think he's trying to weasel into. I don't think he agreed with Charlie Kirk on Israel at the end there, but I don't think that means almost anything to people who don't use violence instead of words. So Ben Shapiro, don't like him, but I respect that move, and that quote is a beautiful intention. We also saw the whole world pour out for Charlie Kirk. I had no idea. Like South Korea, poured out for Charlie Kirk. I was like, South Korea. I guess he went there a lot. I guess like, and there are a lot of Christians there. And he is like a Christian, mouthpiece representative. So I shouldn't have been surprised if I knew more, but I was ignorant. I didn't know. And so why would I? Why would most people who aren't in his specific movement? But really beautiful to see. Very, very cool that the whole world had this and all over the place. And most countries, there was something for him. They sang Amazing Grace in central London. You can see this massive group of people who got together with their candles and they sang together. Again, it's a very human thing to do. No matter what your religion or spiritual outlook is, it's a really beautiful thing to do. So I loved how much beauty and love and togetherness and very, very normal, decent human values came out of this horrible tragedy. So really beautiful to see. Here's some New Zealand Maori Christians paying tribute to Charlie Kirk with the I can't remember what this is called, the haka, maybe. Super awesome. So a lot of men just got together and did that, and it is in the UK. It's still really beautiful. Very cool. I love it. Again, I didn't know the effect he had on people. Also, not because of Charlie Kirk, but you can imagine definitely like lit up by, made more powerful by, made more people come out for because of Charlie Kirk's assassination being so close to it. There was an anti-immigration rally in the UK. By the way, just like the anti-war protests that I helped organize and was part of in the early 2000s, 2003, 2006, in Seattle, these are ridiculously underreported. They're ridiculously underreported for the numbers, which again, we had one of our anti-war protests in Seattle was minimum 50,000 people by our count. And we tried to be, really balanced in that. We don't want to inflate our own numbers. And the news said there was like 4,000, like it was just like insane how much they would try to diminish this movement. But same here. They're saying there's 1,000 attendees, 100,000 attendees. But the people who were there were saying they thought it was like 300,000 minimum, if not 500,000. So again, this is the trend we see where whatever the mainstream media, which is absolutely ultra leftist for a long time now, whatever they want to, and very technocratic, by the way, whatever they want to promote is all over the place. Black Lives Matter, all over the place. Antifa stuff, all over the place. Like Chad in Seattle, all over the place. We saw every little bit of that. And then things they don't like as much. They're like, oh yeah, some people went. Anyway, moving on. Or Occupy. Occupy, we didn't see it all. Occupy was the most effectively suppressed movement in the media worldwide that blew my mind. That was in 2012, around there, right? People I know still don't believe it even happened. I'm like not even exaggerating. Isn't crazy? So they're at it again, usual tricks over there, but a huge turnout. And again, I'm sure in large part because Charlie Kirk died, because it's patriotic, it's free speech oriented, and these were all his values too. So pretty cool too to see over there all of that action for change. So then we had all of this response that wasn't so great. We saw, of course, the famous Office Depot, Office Max, people refusing to publish the Charlie Kirk flyers or print them out or, sell them to the people. The Office Depot, Office Max, to their credit, came out and fired those people, said they were very sorry. I guess Pam Bondi then was like, we're going to look into Office Max. And like, nobody cares. Nobody on the right even wants that. And definitely nobody on the left wants that. Nobody likes you, Pam Bondi. You're doing a poor job. So I think it's fine. I think Office Max took care of it, and that's great. This is another one of those things that's being misrepresented by, again, a lot of the left, who is saying that, they got fired because of what they believed in. Like, no, they literally got fired for not doing their job. It's not illegal to publish flyers for a vigil. It's not even illegal to publish flyers that are pro Charlie Kirk or anything like that. That whole thing was ridiculous. So, and again, Office Depot could have not fired them. That would be their up to them. And then many people would have never, ever gone there ever again for anything. So they made the right choice. I would too, even if I didn't want to publish Charlie Kirk flyers, and that was my prerogative, I would still fire them because I would know that it is better for my bottom dollar, right? This isn't like a sellout thing. It's not like we're talking about like publishing child porn or something. It's just a flyer for someone you didn't like, right? It's not a deep moral division of good and evil. So it's just being blown so far out of proportion. It's crazy. So that was good. We also have the left doing this. This is someone named Andrea Junker saying, so Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's alleged killer, is neither a Democrat nor transgender, nor an immigrant, but instead a 22-year-old white guy from a Republican family in Utah who loves guns and wore a Donald Trump costume on Halloween. Did I get that right? And then when this fell apart, they were like, "Oh, he's a griper." And like, no, he's not a griper either. If Tyler Robinson is indeed the killer, he absolutely seems to have lived with a transgender boyfriend who would soon be his girlfriend, and does come from a Republican family, which means nothing. Are you the same as your family? If so, cool, but not very common. Lots of kids very specifically turn and go exactly the opposite of whatever their roots were. It's a rebellion thing, it's a young person thing. It's so super normal. So, what a ridiculous thing to say, like, oh, you have a Republican family. Like, oh, well, dude, like that means nothing, and everybody rational knows it. Is he a Democrat? I don't know. He seems to have been at least in the trans Tifa edges of things, if not like deeply into Antifa or socialist Democrat, things. There was reporting that he was officially in the Democratic Socialists of America group. I don't think I think that's been shown to be false. And maybe he doesn't fall into any of those categories. Maybe he's just a crazy person. But no one was saying he was a Democrat, actually. They were saying he was probably leftist, which is very different, actually, for being a Democrat. And the Democrats wish to God the extreme leftists would like stop associating with them, to be quite honest, right? So I think, again, most rational people know that. So no one was saying he's Democrat, I think. Maybe someone who doesn't understand the distinction was, but it wasn't like a common thing. Is he transgender? No, but his boyfriend is. Transgender adjacent. You're transgender adjacent. Not a bad thing. Just an interesting trend people are noticing, right? The last two school shootings that we had that were major were both trans individuals. Were they false flags? Yeah, maybe. But that doesn't change that this is a pattern that now you're looking for and that now this person fits it too. Right? So it's a question to ask. Is he an immigrant? No one ever thought no one thought an immigrant climbed up on the roof with a rifle and shot a Republican kid. Like, that's not what anybody said or thought. These people are so ridiculous. Nobody said that. So is he a white guy? Yes. Is he from a Republican family? Yes. Did they love guns? Yeah, I guess. They seem to have tons of pictures from his whole entire life of him with guns. And a lot of Republicans like guns. A lot of Democrats like guns. The smartest people in the world train their children how to use guns because it is the biggest guarantee that they will never suffer from nor commit gun violence. Is it 100%? As we're seeing, no. But it is a much higher percentage than not training them at all and then hoping for the best in case they come across guns or violence. And he never wore a Donald Trump costume on Halloween. He wore himself riding Donald Trump as an insult to Donald Trump, which is very different. It's very different things, and it's so obvious. So you didn't get that right, Andrea. And most of the left is still suffering under these delusions, mostly because the media also continues to prop up many of them. So here's a picture of him with a very large gun when he was much younger. I don't know. I would just guess like 16, 14 in this image. This is one of many that people have dug up. And so someone in this post is saying, oh, by the way, Tyler's parents introduced him to weapons at an early age. Like, again, that's actually a predictor for a lack of violence and a lack of gun violence and a lack of misuse of guns and a respect for guns and an ability to defend yourself. All studies show that. So all studies show. So, but if you're stupid, you're stupid. No one can change it but you. This afternoon or a couple days ago, also Charlie Kirk Memorial. This empty-souled girl who needs a father figure, is painting this rock with her hand for some reason, and she's painting over a vigil to Charlie Kirk. So all these other students, again, whatever you think is right or wrong, if somebody aggresses upon your space, your property, your especially in a time of mourning, and they have no respect for you or anything else. Like, I'm very surprised nobody punched this girl. Again, I've been a very aggressive person in my life, and if I was that age and that girl was doing this to something I was holding vigil for, she would be bloody afterwards. Is it right? Probably not. I am just amazed at the restraint these people have, because I didn't have it then. Now I'd be able to be restrained for sure. But when I was 20 something, when I was in college, like, oh God, no. No, you'd be a bloody pulp, you tiny little thing. So I'm amazed. I'm amazed with the restraint, and I see this over and over again, from the right and not from the left. I see the left aggressing. I see the left trampling over people's boundaries. I see the left having no respect for life or for people, and I see the right showing amazing restraint in the face of it. Kyle Rittenhouse style, right? He's just like, how many warnings did he give? How many warning shots did he give? How long did he run backwards away from them to give them a chance to stop pursuing him before? And then he let them get so close to him with a gun pointed at him before he shot them. Again, would I be able to? If I feared for my life and these people were chasing me with weapons, would I wait? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even feel bad about it. That's defense. It's self-defense. If you're chasing me with a gun, I fear for my life, like, you're gonna get harmed if it's in my capacity to do so, to protect myself. So I see, like, the most restraint, and it's wild to me. It's not what I expected when I was young. It's not what I thought. It's not what I expected even in older ages. It's just what I found recently. Maybe I was never paying attention before. Not sure. Unfortunately, again, even worse than destroying these vigils, people stomped through them, ripped them up. Many of them have lost their jobs, by the way, which is interesting. But um, we also have people like this, even worse. This is a teacher in Toronto who forced 10-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds, to watch the Charlie Kirk murder again and again and again. And I don't know if you've seen it. I didn't want to and did anyway. And it was horrifying. And seeing a human body get ripped to pieces in hateful violence is deeply disturbing on a soul level. And so I'm not happy that I saw that. And to then imagine 9 and 10-year-olds watching it, not just once, but over and over and over again, makes me feel murdery. Getting killed for your words is absolutely wrong. Getting killed for torturing children is absolutely, allegedly, potentially acceptable in a sane society. If you did this to my child, I would have a really hard time not making you hurt badly for it. You can't undo that kind of trauma. It is done. It serves no purpose. You're an insane person. The saddest thing beyond that this even happened is that a lot of people on the left don't believe that it happened. They're so disconnected for how deranged many of their alleged cohort are, the leftist, far left mafia. They're so detached from that. They're so disconnected from it that they think that this is right-wing propaganda. There's court documents already. This person's been fired already. Like, there's charges already. It's a real thing that happened. They don't believe it. They minimize it in that way, by the way. And it's unfortunate because then they're also insulating themselves from what is actually happening. And again, I don't think most people who are Democrats or just generally left are anything like any of these things we're seeing. They're not going to go smear vigils. They're not going to go kick things over. They're not going to show 10-year-olds a video of Charlie Kirk's murder. They're not insane people. And they also don't know how insane the other part of their base is. They don't understand what's happening to children with the trans movement. They don't understand this type of depravity, and that's really dangerous, actually. And this is perhaps a artifact of the algorithms, that they're just literally never shown it. And again, the media, which is almost 100% leftist, is not showing it either. So some of them have been showing more of it and being more honest about it, and that has been cool to see. It hasn't been like a total blackout or smear like we've seen happen before. And so I hope more people know about this, not because I want to think about it or want anyone else to think about it, but we also can't ignore that this is how far people have been literally radicalized by political division and hatred in this culture. It's terrifying that you would subject children to this. May you burn forever. After Charlie Kirk's death, teachers and professors nationwide are fired or disciplined over their social media posts, and many other people also besides have also been fired or dismissed for their posts. And this is another thing that's being deeply mischaracterized. The people who are being fired are people who are laughing, cheering, talking about him becoming a human fountain, like being exceptionally dismissive of human life and derogatory and just flippant in the face of extreme hateful violence. Again, like, you don't have to be right wing, you don't have to like Charlie Kirk to look at this all and go, what is wrong with people? Have a deep human response to it. And so when you don't, your employer absolutely has the right to fire you if you're a horrifying person. People are like, we thought you guys didn't like cancel culture. Do you think that's cancel culture? Cancel culture was canceling people for having a slightly different socio or political view than you. Firing people because they are psychopathic or showing sociopathic, narcissistic, and psychopathic behavior is not cancel culture. It's protecting yourself and your investments. If you look at an employee and they can't even value the most sacred thing, which is human life, do you think they're going to value your stuff, your money, your customers, your time, or anything else? That is very different than being fired, for example, because you voted a certain way or have a MAGA hat, right? Or wave a flag in your van or whatever. These are the things that people were being canceled for, that was cancel culture, right? Or you made a joke 10 years ago because you were less mature, or you wore blackface to a party when you were young because you were less mature, and now you're getting like taken down and lambasted in public for it. Like, this is like 10 years old and you're coming at me now. Like, that is cancel culture. This is sensible business. I would absolutely fire somebody who laughed in the face of horrifying murder or torture or violence of any kind. Yeah, I wouldn't hire them in the first place if I saw any evidence of it. How could you trust somebody like that? So it's absolutely different. It's an absolutely different thing. It's a different topic. It on the very, very surface, to someone not intelligent, it may seem similar because people in both cases are getting fired. That's the only similarity. And by the way, you're allowed to fire people. It's your business. Do what you want. Like, we said that even in cancel culture. Like, technically, I said it at least. Technically, I don't want to force you not to fire these people. I just think it's immoral to do so. In this case, I don't find it to be immoral at all. It makes all the sense in the world to me. And they're very different things. So now to some of the conspiracy theories around Charlie Kirk's death. Charlie Kirk, it was said that his security force, they're all Israeli or they have Jewish ties or whatever. And so they were in on it and they all did it. And he actually got shot from behind. And there's all these videos that show bullets here or there everywhere. And who knows which of them could potentially be real, or are they all faked? Like, we don't know. But all of that was part of this question. And then one of his security guards apparently told him a while ago that he would 100% be killed at an upcoming event. And people took that as a sign of a conspiracy. But again, just like people are taking Charlie Kirk himself out of context, people have taken this out of context too. What the security guard was actually saying was, you need to get better security, not the people you have around you, but the actual security, because someone's going to shoot you from afar. They hate you enough. Our culture is sick enough. There's enough division. There's enough motivation. this is going to happen. That's what he was saying. So, just for context around that, that at least does not seem to be any indication of any kind of conspiracy. There's a video again of him getting off the roof, whoever this is, if it's Tyler Robinson or not. And when he gets off, people say, this is him getting off. Like, where's the gun? Well, it's right there. He just put it down. He's about to flip it over to his other hand right there. He flips it down again. There it goes again. Now he jumps down and it's in his hand still. I don't know what else people think a long black thing is except the gun that you can see here, but that seems pretty clear to me. I think we can let go of that one by now, but who knows, just in case you've never paid attention, there's that. We also are being told now that we found DNA near the scene of Kirk's shooting that matches the suspect. That seems a bit fast. I personally don't believe it, but there you go. There you go. That's what they say. I just don't believe them. This is being reported by many outlets, including here PBS News. And yeah, I mean, could you maybe? Do they go that fast? Did they find like probably not. Probably not. I don't think so. I believe Corey on day 0 has talked to us before about like how BS the whole DNA thing is and how like no one's ever doing DNA analysis. It's not a thing anyone does. Like as a former cop. So this is yet again another thing that strikes me as probably not true. But there it is. That man who they had first tackled and thought was the guy and thought was the suspect originally, this old man. He admits that he helped Charlie Kirk's killer escape. He wanted to draw attention from the real shooter. That's what I had said immediately that he was doing. Again, I'll say we still don't know that that is any kind of collusion at all. It's just but there was people who cheered immediately upon realizing Charlie Kirk had been shot, who were right there, who were watching it happen. So you can't underestimate the potential that this guy understood someone had shot him and just started making a scene in order to try to give whoever that was cover to get away, just on the spur of the moment. So that is absolutely potentially possible. It's also possible they were in on it together. That's totally potentially possible too. But it doesn't necessarily absolutely mean that there is a group or collusion of any kind. This is even more interesting than the DNA thing. Right before the Kirk assassination, Kash Patel fired the head of the FBI Salt Lake City field office in Utah, making him the de facto head of the FBI in Utah until that position could be filled. It was about a month before, and it still had not been filled at the time of the shooting, thereby making Kash Patel the de facto head of the FBI in Utah. So would he have had like a hand in this anyway? Maybe, but would that person perhaps have been in the way of sneaking fake DNA evidence in or other fake evidence in? Like maybe that person had too good of morals to look the other way, right? So sure, this looks fishier now, right? Fishier than anything I've seen so far, was that the DNA is even said to exist and match, and then that Kash Patel had fired her a month prior. Those two things could also be very real. Just saying, to me, that is the fishiest thing yet. I will say again, this photo of the rifle that people were passing around saying, like, why is this rifle in a box? And why is this scope wrong? And why is the da-da-da? And of course, this is all fake. Well, that rifle picture was never released by any official place. It was literally just a person who just posted it and said, here's the gun, just to cause chaos. You know, was it Russia? Was it China? Was it just some shit kid? Like, who knows? But it just doesn't matter. And you could have known that instantly if you, like me, had just said, did they release a picture of the rifle? And then went and looked, and no, they hadn't. So then I could say, well, then, yeah, that's why that doesn't make sense, because it's not real. Is it a real rifle? Maybe. But is it a real rifle from this event? No. And no one seemed to listen or care about that, but that's still true. So if you're still thinking about the rifle, you can debunk that right now. Here we see Tyler Robinson allegedly in a virtual arraignment, wearing like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Someone said this is perhaps so he can't like commit suicide with this outfit or something. Or I was like, it looks vaguely militant. It looks vaguely like almost like a movie version of some kind of like flak jacket, or, you know, like, what is that? And did they do that on purpose to make you think of him as militant? Like, if this is not actually the guy and it's just some kid that they're framing like a patsy, like Oswald and many others, is that why they dressed him this way? I don't know. It's a weird outfit. Um, if this is even real also, right? If he's even real. If he's a real person, this is all so far very easily fakeable. That there even is a person named Tyler Robinson, that he has that family, that he's exists. I at least haven't seen. I haven't looked very hard either, but I haven't seen his family. I haven't seen them on camera. I haven't seen like a lot of anything except this kind of stuff. So, we know AI could actually do better than this. Somebody was like, "Are we gonna get anything but like 1980s like VHS camera footage of him or any of the other things attached to this?" And I was like, "Seriously, why is this so grainy still?" But anyways, it is an internet video in 2025. Anyways, the real point of this is they're filing a death penalty for the death penalty in this. He has a list of charges that are quite long, including committing violence in front of children, including politically motivated, terrorism-related type charges, and the like. So murder and all that. So the death penalty's on the table. But again, if this is a real video, if he's a real kid, if this is really happening, his affect in this video to me shows that he is closer to sociopathy than not, that he really doesn't feel anything about this, that he's actually happy about it, and that he wants to be a sort of martyr, or the person who did this and went down for it, and that he's willing to pay any price for that. So yeah, and so I'd like to look more into it too on like a spiritual level, and look into his aura and all of that. So I'll do that on another episode perhaps. But so far not looking good. Charlie Kirk has refused Netanyahu's funding offer and was frightened by pro-Israeli forces before his death. I feel like I talked about all this last week, but it was all in my list of things to talk about on Winnie Report. So here we are. We definitely talked about it on day 0 as well. And I'll say again, this doesn't really matter. It could, right? So at this moment, we could say, sure, it could be Tyler Robinson, who is just a deeply unwell person who is politically motivated to kill a person for all sorts of reasons that crazy people do things. It could be that Soros was funding in general, as he does many leftist things. Maybe he was funding some sort of intervention to some sort of cell of youth that could be radicalized, that could be led to then carry this out. It could be the same, but from Israel. It could be that Israel or Soros or the CIA or the FBI actually did it and then just found Tyler Robinson and said, this is a convenient patsy. It could be that any of them did this and Tyler Robinson doesn't even exist, and all of that is AI created and virtual and not even real. All of those things are possible. I keep asking, like, would Israel kill one of their biggest proponents and one of the most effective political right-wing people maybe ever, just because they just started to question some things about Israel? Sure, maybe. I mean, if you're like that wanton with your assets and your possible allies, it's totally possible. I just feel like they usually take a little bit longer than that. What I'm actually more interested in than this is Tucker Carlson brought it up. Someone else brought it up too. That just like many political people who are assassinated, they do a lot of things that could piss Israel off for a while. And they walk a lot of tight lines going back and forth, and sometimes pissing Israel off and sometimes not. And Israel doesn't necessarily kill them right away. If Israel ever does, allegedly, and whatever else I have to say, legally. But what happens right before John F. Kennedy, right before Martin Luther King, and right before Charlie Kirk got assassinated is they start getting into the economics. And once you get into the economics and you start calling for a different type or style of economics, now you're about to get killed. The people who are most likely to get killed for political reasons or socioeconomic reasons are those. We see big pharma all the time, disappearing people, like 2 shots to the back of the head, swear to God, it was suicide type of thing, all the time. And right before all of this went down, Charlie started pushing into BlackRock and whether or not it was right for private equity to buy up all the land and all of the houses. And he was pushing for the Republican Party to do something about it. That's more dangerous than questioning whether or not it is possible that October 7th was not quite what we were told. In my opinion, that's more likely what got him killed. I would actually rank it Soros type, Antifa type, political interference, and then BlackRock type economic, and then maybe Israel. I just really don't believe that it was Israel this quick and this hard and this fast. Um, you know, and could it be? Of course. Like I said, if I were a betting person, I'd have to put my money on that because it's so frequent. But allegedly. So, anyways, that's an interesting thing to think about there. Here's the alleged text exchange between Tyler Robinson and his trans boyfriend after the assassination. I'm of two minds about this because one thing I'll tell you that everyone's saying, like, oh, this is totally Fed speak. Kids don't talk like this. Like, no kids talk like this. Like, oh, you're stupid if you think any kids would talk like this. And I'll tell you that I had ninth graders that talked like this. I had middle schoolers that talked like this. I had middle schoolers and ninth graders that texted like this. So could a 22-year-old potentially be texting like this? Absolutely. Dude, not everyone is like a sitcom retard. Not every child is dumb. Not everybody uses emojis. Do you not know anyone who doesn't use emojis? Like, they exist, dude. Like, stop being so narrow. This could still absolutely be fake and be from the feds without you pretending that it couldn't possibly be said by actual 22-year-olds. That's crazy. You clearly don't know enough, young people, if you don't know that they could talk like this. I was a teacher for more than 14 years of children from 6 to 60 and in all types of settings. And there are absolutely kids who write and talk like this, for sure, 100%. Dude, I had a ninth grader that spoke like he was like Hitler's general or something. Like, this was one of the smartest kids I ever had. He would have never been caught dead using emojis. Dude, I could totally actually imagine this entire thing. I'm not going to say that, but this could absolutely be an exchange that he would have with someone. Except I don't think that he would be trans and whatnot. But other than that, right? So, yeah. And also it reads like the feds wrote it for sure. It does. It absolutely reads that way. So it's way too convenient. It's got like every single point you would need to make a case against someone. It ties up all the loose ends. Like, it's a little too convenient. And it still could be real. It absolutely could be real. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. So you can read it yourself. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And that's that. That's supposedly their text interaction. I again sort of ask, like, who released this? How did they get it that quickly? Why did they put it out? Why are we even able to read it really this quickly, this soon? Like, those types of things all stink. Like, the DNA thing stinks. The Utah taking out the FBI a month ahead of time stinks. Like, this stinks. But again, don't jump to those conclusions because of the language. Like, jump to those conclusions because the pattern fits a pattern and the evidence actually does point somewhere else, right? Just use your logic, use your mind. Don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in your own bubble and your own bias as much as possible, right? But on the topic of those text messages, this Matt Gutman of ABC went on this long diatribe about how beautiful it was that Tyler Robinson loved his trans lover and how great it was that he loved his boyfriend so much, and how sad it was that there was so much heartfelt love between them, and just on and on. Not anything like that about, like, how sad it is that there's kids without a father, how sad it is that people were traumatized by seeing this and being witness to it, how sad it is that they watched a human body get ripped apart in front of them. Like, all of that that's not worth emoting about, but it is worth emoting about this alleged murderer and how he loved his trans boyfriend. I was like, before this moment, Matt Gutman, did you believe that there were did you think that all murderers just didn't have any love in their life? I would venture to say that 100% of them were loved and loved. I don't think that's weird. It's not even a story. It's like, what? It's such a weird thing to do, but it definitely, I also can see it immediately sort of grabbing some people who I know personally, and they would be like, "Oh, it's so sad that he was so in love with his trans boyfriend that he had to go murder. Isn't that so heartbreaking?" Like, I know there's people who are saying that, and I know that this is exactly who they're after with this type of content. So it works, unfortunately. There's also a lot of talk lately. It's so wild, actually. There's so much talk about how, well, okay, sure, Charlie Kirk got murdered, and maybe that wasn't the greatest thing, but he had it coming. And also, all of the violence ever is always from right wing. Like this is like a common, almost ubiquitous talking point from anyone who's even center or left, it seems like recently. I don't know if you've seen this as well in your world. Um, but it's not true. And I mean, if anything, we could say it's like I said, it's actually not even party lines. It's not, spiritual lines, is not skin color lines. It's good and evil. It's, are you well or not? It's, do you have an ability to control yourself or not? Do you have self-responsibility or not? It's those things. But if we were actually going to break down the violence, it's actually overwhelmingly left. And the reason is because that has been very intentionally inculcated, engendered, created over the past at least 10 years. So it's not that leftists are automatically naturally more violent people. You actually could make the argument they are because they've got their communist revolution stuff on that side. But and it's not actually inherently like what it is to be left or a Democrat. And you've been living in a world where the George Floyd riots and all of this stuff was absolutely encouraged. They said it was for people's mental health. They said, wear a mask and don't see anybody and don't go outside unless you're rioting because that's good for your mental health. Not even exaggerating. And then people were murdered in every city across the United States that had these riots, and buildings were burned down and all sorts of property damage and all sorts of assaults and all sorts of rapes in this chaos. But they don't count that as violence. They don't count that as violence against themselves because it doesn't fit their definition of violence, because it's okay to do that. And therefore, we just don't want to call it violence. We watched people rip animals out of an animal shelter and torture the animals during the PLM protests. You tell me that that's not violence. So here's somebody who saw this post and was talking about, these graphs that all of these, again, very leftist people are sharing that are like, oh, look at all this Republican violence and it's overwhelming and da da da. And this person points out, as an attorney who is good at sifting through data, this is what's excluded from that graph: economic sabotage and terrorism, including Tesla, burning police stations and businesses as an example, violence at demonstrations, including Charlottesville, BLM's riots and the like, hate crimes involving trespassing, graffiti, and damage to objects. School shootings are generally excluded because there's no clear political motive, even when the shooter is, for example, trans and shooting up a Catholic church. Even then, they exclude it. Material support for terrorist organizations is not included. Riots are not excluded, except January 6th was included. Every other riot was not included in the graph. So if you cherry pick your data and you say, well, we're not going to count all this, but we are going to count these things, then you can definitely make it seem like anything you want to seem as true is true. But if you're an honest person, that's not what you do. Robberies targeting individuals based on race and religion to fund terrorist activity was not included. Death threats and threats of violence were not included. And when you do include those things, suddenly the graph looks very different. So if anyone's coming at you with this whole like right wing is more violent thing, you don't have to go all the way into left wing is more violent, but you can at least say that's not true and the data is exceptionally skewed and politicized. And that's just one example of that. Here's another one someone had the audacity to share with me and say is an example of left-wing being the peaceful ones, right-wing being the violent ones. And this was just pulled off of the Department of Justice website. This was created in 2024 at the last minute in a very biased and politicized way in order to put up on the Department of Justice site so that Trump would have to take it down if he wanted any sort of sense. And whatever you think of Trump or whatever else, this was an absolutely bullshit supposed study. So this is the NIJ research, what it tells us about domestic terrorism. NIJ funded research projects have led to a better understanding of the processes that result in violent action, factors that increase the risk of radicalizing to violence. We talked about this back when it went up because they only looked at political domestic terrorism as right-wing organizations. They don't include BLM. They don't include Antifa. They don't include communists and socialists. They don't include any of those riots. Just like we were just talking about with the other data, this didn't either. They also define hate speech or hate crimes in very narrow ways. Hate crimes and hate speech can only be committed, for example, against Black people, women, trans people, or people with disabilities. You can't, for example, count it if you are spewing hate at someone for their COVID beliefs, for voting for Trump or wearing Trump hat or clothes. None of those things count. Even for just being white or for being straight, none of those things count. So even if it is proven that things are motivated, violence is motivated by those factors, that doesn't count in their book, literally. So again, skewing data, cherry picking, absolutely politicized. So yeah, it was taken down because it's absolute garbage. It's garbage. You could just be more honest. And so they're like, oh, all the extremists, it turns out, are Republicans because we only define extremists as Republicans. Like, well, yeah, if you do that, that's how it's going to look to you. If you're stupid, you will do that. And they are. They're not only stupid, they're liars. And they expect you to be stupid enough to buy it. So you're a winner if you don't. So Trump has designated Antifa a terrorist organization. There is not anything about Antifa that doesn't fit the definition of a terrorist organization. So I'm not surprised. People are then criticizing and saying it's so stupid because Antifa is decentralized, which is fantastic. This is like the best thing about them is their structure. Decentralized and their funding is too. And so you're not going to be able to do anything about it. You can designate them as a terrorist organization. You can't actually do anything about it. Like you can still wear Antifa shirts and go to Antifa events and you're not going to be arrested for terrorism. You have to actually fund it or materially support it and show that you're organizing it for the purpose of terrorizing people or forcing political views on people. And that would then maybe allow you to be have the hammer dropped on you. And so people are saying, well, that doesn't exist. Well, actually it does exist. It is true that Antifa is a decentralized organization without a specific, funding source, except for the Antifa Defense Fund. I think it's the International Antifa Defense Fund. And that, it turns out, is very organized and does have high-level leftist donors who they keep private. So will we learn now who funded the BLM riots? Probably. And I would be very happy if it turned out to be George Soros, as we already know it was, and if that somehow comes back on him. So interesting times we live in. In fact, Trump even said, we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people because this is more than protests. This is real agitation. This is riots on the streets, and we're going to look into that. So that is actually seemingly the intention. Again, a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, and I will too. But I'm actually surprised how much I've had to believe because I've seen just in the past, what has it been, like 8 months? Really short period of time. So we'll see. I'm always open to it. I'm always open to it. Bring in the goodness, bring in the wins. So here's someone else's perspective on Antifa, and this is Bowtied Ranger, and he says, trans goblins and their Reddit-brained fondlers, collectively the mentally unwell, make up the lower ranks of Antifa. The middle ranks are shitlibs from the FBI, CIA, Special Forces. Yes, there are a ton of shitlib, de-oppresso liber, Green Berets, and other branches of the national security apparatus. This is where all the tactical advice comes from in Discord channels. The highest ranks are the financiers, billionaires in foreign countries that hate the United States and launder their influence through Antifa so they can attack the United States from inside. It's a legitimate terrorist organization that must be defeated immediately, otherwise it will continue to destroy this country. And there's going to be all kinds of cries of like, that's the story you're supposed to believe, and da da da. And having seen Antifa many times in person at events and protests and seen what their tactics and approaches were back then, I wouldn't have even respected them then, and I respect them much less now. And so I also tend to agree with that general structure, that is something that many, not just the sort of fake philanthropist class billionaires, but also, as they said, foreign influences that would like to see the US weaken from within would absolutely use that. That's not what Antifa was created for. That's not what the people who are in it think they're doing. God bless them, but it's absolutely what is being done. So whenever you're able to be manipulated and used as a weapon, you will be. Don't let yourself. That's the winning move. Following Charlie's assassination, Andy Neo writes, an Antifa group in Oregon has written a report expressing concern with the unity on the right. They're concerned about the unity on the right and the activation of conservative normies who are otherwise not political. They worry about the public outpouring of support. Yeah, they would. They would worry about that. I'm also like, I think maybe a lot of them were like, would have never even thought of shooting Charlie Kirk, and it absolutely, like we said, could be Israel or CIA or other things, and meant to foment, this acceptance of a more technocratic sort of police surveillance state. It's all possible. It's all possible. We already knew it was coming. It doesn't matter how, right? We've already had our eyes on it. It also is just true that that's what's happened. You have made the right wing like the most powerful beast you could have possibly made it. I did. You could even killing Trump wouldn't, I think, have done this much, because Trump has so much questionable morals and ethics, and everyone knows that. But Charlie Kirk, it's like practically just like untouchable. Like, he was just a good person. There was one thing out of all of the videos that I ended up watching because he, shot, and I wanted to know what kind of person they killed. There was one thing out of all the things he said, out of all the things they took out of context that weren't what he said, out of all of those things, there was one thing no one even brought up that I was like, that was kind of messed up. And it was something about, which I've said before too, if you were gay or trans and you were in Gaza, like, they'd kill you. And the way he said it was, if you were gay or trans and you were in Gaza, they'd throw you off a building. And then he said, but they don't have any buildings left to throw people off of. I guess they shouldn't kill Jewish people. So it's pretty dark, pretty, you could criticize that. And that one's not even one of the quotes that everyone's criticizing, right? But again, you can criticize a lot less. He's an upright person. He showed patience and love to all these people who were just in his face and violent vitriol. And so he's a much better martyr. And he's had a much larger effect, I think, even than if Trump would have died. So interesting stuff. The unity of the right is coming for the left. So Jimmy Kimmel has been taken off the air. This, again, is so obviously a psyop. If the murder itself, if the assassination itself wasn't a psyop, this definitely is. And anyone who's falling for it, who are you? How are you still like this? So Jimmy Kimmel, his contract was up in 2026. He said he didn't want to renew it and was retiring. So by his own words, he wasn't coming back. By his, whatever industry's contracts, he wasn't coming back. He's already done for. And now they're canning him because he lied. He misrepresented information. He didn't give accurate information. People think he's being canceled because he didn't show enough sadness for Charlie. Nobody cares if you have sadness. People care if you're lying, misrepresenting, mischaracterizing, promoting violence, celebrating death. Those are the things that bother people. I mean, I would hope on any side of anything, but so people had a big reaction to that, and he got taken off. I don't think he even got taken off because his producers or whoever, the FCC or whatever, I don't even think that's why. I think they took him off so that people would be bad, so that people would have another thing to fight about, so that people would have another thing to feel divided about, because he was already on the way out. Nobody cares. And most of even the right wing that I have seen, they're like, whatever, I'm not going to cry about it, but I don't think it's right. It wasn't necessary. like, screw that guy, but also, like, why do I care if he's on or not? Like, So this wasn't even like a right-wing thing. It just seems to be a completely contrived thing that was meant to spark more division. So hopefully you just can not care and let it go like everyone else, I think, who's normal. Uh, he was smeared in Israel, in the Times of Israel, said Kirk's murder can't erase his anti-Semitism. I'll point out these are opinion pieces that don't necessarily obviously reflect the views of even the majority of Jewish people and not necessarily the government, et cetera, et cetera. The wrong kind of friend, rethinking Charlie Kirk's support for Israel, and all this stuff in the Times of Israel. So not surprised. I think even if you have like a slight question of anything Israel's ever done, people pretend you're an anti-Semite because they don't know the difference between a government and like a race of people or a religion, because they're not super smart. But I don't really think this means anything. It's just a thing. Starbucks programmed their printers to not print the name Charlie Kirk. I guess people were going to Starbucks and just saying their name was Charlie Kirk so that they would have to print it. I feel really bad for the employees. They very clearly weren't the ones who did this, but they probably had to deal with a bunch of people who were upset that they couldn't get their Charlie Kirk name on their cup, and that's not really fair. But Starbucks definitely seems to have done that, and they I don't think that they have apologized, but it's also kind of weird to go like say your name's Charlie Kirk at a Starbucks. I'm not really sure what anyone was going for with that, but that happened. 20 people who talked about Charlie Kirk's shooting in Discord are under investigation. A lot of people are like, "What? You're not investigating anyone else?" And like I said, like of course they are, but they wouldn't necessarily say that right away because they're hoping people like put out some more rope to hang themselves with, so to speak. So, obviously many people are being investigated. The CEOs of Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit are testifying before Congress at the online user radicalization, as it's being called, or providing a platform for radicalization and organization of potentially terrorist things. It's the same thing where like we've been talking about this since Craigslist had prostitutes on it. Like where is the provider of the platform responsible and where are they not? And like how much freedom should people have, and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't even know why it's a problem because I'm pretty sure they have access to 100% of all of it if they want it. So I don't even know why we're still talking about it, but they're going to go testify and it'll at least make people feel better, and it'll probably lead to some technocratic stuff. That's been the aim all along, and they're definitely not going to let this crisis go to waste. So and so as Vigilant Vox points out, this assassination is already being weaponized to justify a crackdown on free speech. Representative Clay Higgins has called for lifetime bans from social media and even revoking driver's licenses for those who mocked Kirk's murder. Yeah, I never know if people like this are serious or if they're like just trying to cash in on the outrage because they know that's never going to happen. But yeah, hate speech doesn't exist as a real thing. It's not a legal definition, and it's a made-up term that, like we already talked about, leftists have weaponized and don't allow actual hateful things to be included, only what they decide is hateful. And so Pam Bondi and this guy and others are coming under fire. Again, I'll say that all the Republicans I can see have actually decried this, so I'm not that worried about it. I'm worried about the technocratic state for sure, but not those people at this moment. So here's another thing that's being misrepresented. You may have seen people talking about. I just caught wind of this. We've actually talked about it before on Winning Report under a different light, but this is from ABC News. It says, from slavery to pollution, national park employees flagged material deemed disparaging to the U.S. And so this is, and people who, again, are being misled intentionally and being intentionally politicized and pathologized without their awareness are really upset about this. And what it is the Trump administration has told various parks and various national sites and various historic sites to take down all of this propaganda that is disparaging of the United States' history. And a lot of this was just put up, again, sort of like that study that was saying that only Democrats are peaceful and all Republicans are criminals or violent or whatever. This is similar. They sort of threw this all up all over these sites that had nothing to do with the content. So, for example, at a random historical site and building that didn't have anything to do with slavery at all, they would have this whole slavery thing. And it's not just like that slavery happened and that it was bad. It's like the worst, most degrading images and examples from slavery that you could have. And like children and families would be there like trying to explore, this park or this historic site, and then they would just see like this, and then that like America's full of pollution and we've like done this horrible job with the environment and like all this other stuff that was very, very disparaging. So was all of it true? Potentially. A lot of it was, at least the slavery stuff was, and some of the other things. Did it belong in those sites? I mean, no, I don't even think anyone could make a logical argument for why it was there to begin with. So it's not like Trump was like, let's take down the slavery museum. We don't want anyone to ever know we had slaves. Like, he's not retarded. Like, this is not what has happened. This is not even close to what has happened. And if you look at even a small amount of the details, you start to see that all they're saying is there's no reason to have all this content at sites where it doesn't even relate to the thing itself. It's so stupid. And you go put up a bunch of slavery signs at like a playground and see if people like it. Like, no, they don't. Do you have to constantly think about slavery just because you're out and like playing at a park? No, it doesn't even make sense. You don't even know what you're arguing for. You're just mad. And by the way, a lot of these people are the same people who thought it was totally fine to rip down actual statues, which are in a historically relevant position and placement, and have just been there the whole time. And that was cool. But like taking down signs that were just put up and don't have anything to do with anything, that's somehow a big problem. It's pretty ridiculous. So you're a winner if you see through that psyop. Trump went to visit the British royalty. I don't know why. They just do things like this. And they said on Piers Morgan, they're going to roll out the ultimate red carpet. And he said, to stress, I've not seen this done for any other world leader. This is unprecedented. So apparently he got a big treatment there, and that was a big deal. People are saying he like dissed the king and he touched the king and he wasn't supposed to touch the king. He touched his back right here. You're not supposed to do that. And what a big, huge faux pas. And everyone hates us because we're all so stupid. Stupid Americans don't even know how to treat the king. And it turns out like none of that's apparently true. Apparently they did this a few years ago with the Queen and Trump again, and like tried to say he walked too far ahead or doesn't know protocol and all of this. And then they were proven wrong. And now they're doing the exact same playbook again. So I don't know. Apparently he's been given a treatment that no one else has ever received. So apparently they like him a lot. Probably because he's the Jewish Messiah. Well, we'll see. Saudi Arabia, nuclear armed Pakistan sign a mutual defense pact. So we're seeing more unity in non-Western alliances and strength in that. We've talked about that many times, especially with BRICS and these other sorts of alliances that are making a multipolar world, as we might call it. Good, bad, neutral. I mean, we'll see. I don't care. They're allowed to be friends, right? This was cool. Massive attack turned live facial recognition into a concert commentary on surveillance. And these are all people in the crowd, supposedly at least, in real time. And they're actually being shown up on the screen and identified. So their names are up there too. I can't read them, from this footage. But pretty cool, right? They're just showing and making people aware of like how much of the technocratic state we've already been living under. It's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, it's coming. And I'm like, well, it's been here. It's been here for quite a while. The trap has been set and laid and we're in it. And we'll see where it heads. But as I've said all along too, all you have to do is stick to your principles and not go along with anything that isn't your principles. You're not in charge of making sure the entire world is a certain way or not. That's in fact not something you could ever achieve. But you are in charge of making sure you are a certain way or not. So you take care of yourself. And then you take care of others when you can. Tyson Foods has cut high fructose corn syrup from all of their products by the year's end, which is fantastic. It's a huge win. This is in part, at least, pressure from Secretary Kennedy from the Make America Healthy Again movement. High fructose corn syrup, of course, being one of the worst things for your body, probably right after seed oils. So those two things, and then glyphosate and some of these other toxins, those get out of our food supply, we got a good chance of feeling much better. I say that because I've been feeling so crazy today. I thought maybe like the Schumann resonance was insane, or we were getting hit by some massive solar storm, but I just got like dropped earlier today. My head hurts right now, and I'm actually somewhat shocked that I've maintained coherence this whole time. It'll be funny if I listen back to this and I'm just babbling incoherently. That is what I feel like is happening. But as usual, I'm just talking a lot. So the EU Commission admits corona vaccines were released without complete safety data. You think? I hate reading things like this because I'm like, yeah, we knew that 5 years ago. Thanks for finally admitting to us what we already knew all along. And then I go, maybe somebody out there who still doesn't get it will go, wait, what? And like realize something, maybe. And that would be a win. And that would be great. And otherwise, it's just frustrating to read what we already knew from a demon's face. Russia's newly developed cancer vaccine, on the topic of vaccines, has shown high effectiveness in preclinical trials and is ready for rollout, according to Veronika Skvortsova, head of the Federal Medical Biological Agency. Sure. They even said, oh, this will be great for, the king and the duchess. I don't know, princess, whatever she is. They both had cancer, remember? So the alleged king and the alleged whatever. Those people who pretend to be a royal family over there in Britain, they had cancer. Maybe they'll take Russia's vaccine and not have cancer anymore. I will say, even if I have cancer, I'm not injecting that into me no matter what it is. The end. WHO was proud to join Pakistan and partners in the historic launch of the HPV vaccination campaign to protect 13 million girls from cervical cancer in Pakistan. And I quote tweeted this and said, watch just how many girls get cervical cancer, die, have brain damage, or become paralyzed, and many other things, Guillain-Barré, and all the other types of vaccine damage. HPV is one of the worst, allegedly, injections that you can get. Ask your doctor what's right for you. Because it gave me cervical cancer, of all kinds of people. This is the worst one ever, and they're going to give it to all these poor Pakistani girls. And I mean poor, like kids without money. So, nice globalist eugenics program going on in Pakistan via your friendly WHO. God bless them. Israel launches an offensive to occupy Gaza City. Apparently it's like really picked up steam and everything's crazy over there. That's what we're told. It's very interesting to me because I just realized this last week, that the crew that will say everything's fake, everything's staged, everything's not real. You already know as soon as Charlie Kirk got shot that it's Israel. You already know that it's going to be a patsy, or you already know this because everything is, and it always is. And if you see it on the news, it's fake, and all of this. And I've always said, if you see it on the news, it's good to question whether or not it's real. It very often is not. And you very often can find, the false flag and the conspiracy and the false. And it's sometimes also things happen. So I've never been it's all fake. It's always fake. It's crew. But what I've realized is that crew it's always fake. It's always fake. It's always fake, except Palestine. Everything around the world is fake except Palestine. And that's really interesting to me. So I'll just leave that there for you to consider. But speaking of Palestine, Israeli army has laid siege to the West Bank and did a show of humiliation. And what was weird about this happened on the exact day that Charlie Kirk was shot. So a lot of people are like, it was the day after. So a lot of people were like, oh, they did this right because everyone's distracted. So they killed Charlie to take him out because he was their enemy. And then they did all this Gaza stuff because everyone was distracted. But then, no one's really distracted. Like, the people who care about Palestine, never stop caring about Palestine. I care about Palestine too, but the people who are on it, that never stops. They're 100% of the time, my entire life, that's all just Palestine all the time. I'm not criticizing it. I'm saying, like, you couldn't possibly pull a psyop big enough to distract them, is my point. So that was never gonna happen, and if that was the goal, it didn't work anyway. But what was interesting is, and this is what made me start thinking about, like, how much might be faked. And by no means am I saying that it's okay or that everyone in Palestine is fine or that no harm has ever been done. Wondering what else might be going on, because if you watch the videos of this alleged show of humiliation, it is strange. And they're going to show ads. And so we're never going to get to the thing. But people are like laughing and smiling as they're allegedly being like forced out of their apartments and their places and like marched down the street. So I guess they're not going to show this here, but I saw it at some point on this page. So you can go check it out for yourself, but very, very weird. Uh and here it is like in a picture format, but if we were looking the other way and we could see their faces, like a ton of them are smiling and laughing. So it just like it sent me down a weird thing, and at the very least, it got me to realize that no one ever questions anything that comes out of Palestine. No one ever wonders if any of that is faked. So that's interesting to me. Netanyahu then addressed a Democrat and Republican congressional delegation. There's something like 250 of them over there, which is weird enough. And I said, well, sometimes you got to recommit yourself to the synagogue of Satan. So, you can't blame him. You can't blame them for recommitting themselves to the synagogue of Satan. But they're over there doing that. And this is what he says to them. He says, but do you have cell phones? You have cell phones here. You're holding a piece of Israel right there. You know that. Is that a threat? I read that as a threat. I read that as remember the pagers that we say that we use to kill all the people? Was it Iran, Syria, or whatever? And then remember how he gave Trump the golden pager? And I was like, that's a threat. And now he's telling 250 Congress people, like, Israel's in your phone, in your pocket right now. That's a threat. These people are all being held against their will under duress. That is crazy. I will never forget this. This and the pager thing are like, this is emblazoned in my mind. Like, this man, I already knew he was a demon, but that's crazy. One of my favorite things too that I don't have here, maybe we can do it, but that place where Charlie got shot, I'm not gonna be able to find a picture of it. It was sort of like a baseball diamond embedded in itself. Here it is. It looks an awful lot like a menorah. Isn't that interesting? Oops. Where's my open image? Oh, and it's tiny. Well, anyways, it is. It's a menorah. It's a little different. This has 5. So if you count the arms of the menorah going in from one side, is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a center. And this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a center, maybe even 6, depending on how you count, maybe even 7, depending on how you count. So not exactly the same, but it's interesting. At the very least, the universe laughs in synchronicity, not at misfortune, just in general. Oh, so Trump is saying that everybody will be able to use TikTok still. I didn't even know people were still worried about that, but that's apparently a big deal that he's worked out for all of you. So you're welcome, I guess. The fired federal prosecutor Maureen Comey is suing the Trump administration to get her job back. She has to, because otherwise, she hasn't maybe like tortured or killed enough children or something. Like, who knows what her satanic family is holding over her head, but she's got to try. She's got to try to get in there in that position of power. And so that is happening. We also had these really interesting series of threats going on right around the Charlie Kirk assassination too. So multiple historically Black universities were under lockdown after receiving bomb threats or death threats or violence threats in general. I think there was like 3 or 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of them in the South. So all of them with historical racial ties. So, probably a hoax if we just go off of, again, pattern. It is most likely that this is a hoax because all of the other big high level like hate crimes or threats against Black people or whatever have been hoaxes also in the past of many years. And so probably, and then at the same time, we had that at the United States Naval Academy, also locked down due to threats. Um, Same day, I believe, even so, the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination. So really interesting. Like, were they trying to pop things off even more? If so, I think they greatly underestimated how Christian Charlie Kirk's followers were and how unlikely they are to ever commit violence, perhaps defense, but not violence. And so I don't know. I don't know. It's at least a weird note. So if you've got anything else on that, let me know. We also have these two Mississippi men who were both found hanging from trees. I believe they're both African American. One of them was Demar Travion Trey Reed of Grenada, and he was found hanging in Delta State University campus in Cleveland. And the other was Corey Zucatis of Brandon, found near Vicksburg. And people are investigating both deaths. Both of them so far seem to be suicide. Just because a person is Black and just because they're hanging doesn't mean that someone lynched them, you racists. But people are nonetheless spreading this around and also greatly embellishing the story with details that the family, the cops, the coroner, like the news, like everybody says isn't true. So people are like, his legs were both broken and he was battered and bruised. How could he have killed himself? And it's like, well, none of that is true. He just was hanging. He could have been killed. He could have killed himself. You don't know. Getting highly emotionally reactive because someone dies in a way that you don't even know what happened is probably one of the most ridiculous things, right? Like Charlie Kirk very clearly got murdered live in front of like everyone in the world. We don't know what happened to this person or either of these people. But they're saying there's no evidence of foul play, and there's lots of disinformation, misinformation spewing around, lots of internet hoaxes, and lots of people spreading all of that. So be warned, we have no indication that either of these were anything but suicides. And that just does happen. It's just sad and it happens. So not everything is a hate crime or a racial incident. Newsom advisors want to redistribute farmland by race. They literally have made a report in which they suggest that they remove farmland from family, multi-generational family farms and landowners and give it to Native Americans and African Americans. Why? Just because someone thinks that might be somehow more equitable. The California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force has said so. Like, if you want to start actual war and violence with people, this is what you do. When you start just taking people's land, you're going to get way more of the Bundy stuff going on, whatever his name was. Not the serial killer, but the guy who had the cows or whatever. And that's that. And they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They just want they want to get the people who are that far left to vote for them and like them, and they want to get everyone else riled up, and then they're not going to do it. You can't. They're not going to let you do it. People won't put up with that, but that's an actual real ideal that they're actually pretending is legitimate. Senate Republicans have defeated the Democrats' effort to force the release of the Epstein files. Again, this was the day of Charlie Kirk. This was another thing that people were like, oh, they happened to do it right when he died. And I'm like, well, I mean, it was going to be voted on that day either way. I don't know. Some people, the people who are like, this is all a distraction from this. I'm like, well, you think everything is a distraction from something else. Things also just happen in the world. Calm yourself. So, yeah. Disappointing, not, I don't care. Way before it was ever a Democrat or Republican issue, it was just a protecting children issue, and nobody did anything about it. It's way long gone. I don't have any trust that anything they could even release would do anything for anyone or have anything true in it. Why would you think it would? It's just a partisan issue at this point, and it's just to get you upset and to get votes, and it's stupid. If you would have cared like 10 fucking years ago, then it would have mattered. The FTC launches an inquiry into AI chatbots acting as companions to small children. Dear God, like what? Just get more and more disappointed with people. You're gonna give your kid an AI. What? What? So dark. So, and this is I go back to like, if this is what humans want for themselves, albeit for me to stop you, like, whatever. If you're so broken and deluded that you think it's a good idea to get even more detached from your children and give them to whatever AI is you don't know, okay, I guess you're not interested in being human. Have fun. Oh my God. Just like thousands are expected at the 39th annual Fallen Firefighter event. This is actually here in my town, Colorado Springs, this weekend. 10,000 people are expected to fill the streets for fallen firefighters. This is the Fallen Firefighter capital. We have the list of every fallen firefighter on this big wall. People come down, they have this mourning and this celebration, and all of these volunteers come together and they give them flags and they help them find their names and they have stuff to make etchings, and it's just really very beautiful. I guess a lot of people can hate cops, but do you hate firefighters? Come on, that is pretty cool. I like it, and I call it a win. I call it a good feeling. And we'll end on this. The Democratic Party booth at the Ashland County, Ohio Fair was kicked out today after displaying buttons with 8647. Yeah, they're still doing it. They're still like, we're not the party of violence, and we don't promote violence, and we had nothing to do with promoting the rhetoric that would lead people to think that murder is okay politically. 8647. Which is like all in the same breath. Charlie Kirk didn't deserve to die, but also he said things so he deserved to die. And also, we're not violent, but 8647. Okay. And then worse than that, because you could argue they just mean get him out of here, get him out of office, right? You could say that if you really want to be delusional and play stupid mind games. But is he dead yet? Is he dead yet is another one of the buttons. So 8647, fascist, and is he dead yet? And again, you could argue like, no, we're just hoping for a natural death. But no, we've seen through you at this point. You celebrate political murder. You celebrate murder in general. You're okay with violence as long as it's on your side. You'll dismiss all the violence on your side, say that it only comes from the other side. And I don't call that a left-right problem. I call that a delusional problem. I call that a problem being disconnected from your soul. I call that a problem with your spiritual center. I call that a problem with feeling connected to your fellow person and having sympathy or empathy for them. That's what I call that. I call that good and evil. Good and evil. And yes, I'm absolutely willing to draw a line between good and evil. I'm absolutely willing to call behaviors evil. I rarely call people evil. Most of them are politicians of both sides, Republican and Democrat, of international flavors as well. I rarely call any person evil, but I will absolutely call your behaviors evil. And it's absolutely of the utmost importance that you clarify for yourself where the line is between good and evil. They're real forces. They actually exist. It's the actually war, if there is one, that has been happening for thousands of years. And your heart and your soul are absolutely the centerpiece to the war. So clarify for yourself where you're at, which side you're on, and what you're going to do with all that good, beautiful energy you got going on here in your heart. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
To these screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, a holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.